Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video in my series from Panama. I have been in Panama now for almost a week. Most of that time was for work, but I'm now taking a few days for birding and putting out some videos based on that. I'm staying at a place called the Gamboa Rainforest Reserve, which has a resort hotel on it. It's kind of historic. It's been around for over 100 years in some form or the other, and it's kind of a nice family resort. But what attracted me to it was the extensive grounds that it has for birding. So it has some open areas with lots of trees, and it kind of slopes down to the Chagres River, which you can see behind me. So it really has a lot of nice habitat for birds. And of course, you can just go out the door of your room onto the balcony and look out, or you can walk out onto the grounds immediately. So it's very convenient. In fact, when I birded the grounds yesterday, I actually ended up with more species than I had at the Rainforest Discovery Center, which is, a top birding destination. Now, arguably, the birds that I had at the Rainforest Discovery Center were more desirable, better birds, if you will, but many of the common birds of Panama can be seen very easily on the grounds of this resort. So what I'm going to do right now is just go for a walk and see what we can see on the grounds here. And as well, I'm going to mix in some of the video that I took of birds yesterday doing exactly the same loop. So we'll get more birds from a double loop here. But, just really a pleasant place to bird here, and I'll have some footage of the hotel as well, so you can get an idea of what that looks like. So possibly the most common and conspicuous type of bird in Panama is flycatchers. There are many different kinds, and they seem to occupy all of the habitats. I was able to film about 4 or 5 flycatcher species right from the balcony of my hotel room, including this social flycatcher. This is one of several species that have similar plumage consisting of brownish back, yellow on the belly and breast, and a striped pattern on the face, and they can be tricky to separate. This one is a rusty margined flycatcher, which is very similar to the social flycatcher that I just showed, with the main difference being a black rather than a gray cap. And here's a tropical kingbird, one of the most common birds in Panama and one I showed in a previous video in this series. This one is a peratic flycatcher, which lacks the yellow on the front, so a little easier to identify. Another new one for the channel life list, as are most of the birds in this video. That's the number in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And now back to the original plumage pattern with this great kiskadee. This one has a larger head and bill than the social and rusty margined flycatchers. Great kiskadee is actually a regular ABA area bird, as it can be found as far north as the lower Rio Grande Valley area of Texas. Clay-colored thrush is another common bird that reminds me a lot of American robins. They're also found regularly in the lower Rio Grande Valley of Texas. Here's a view of the back of the hotel. All of the rooms have a really nice view of the grounds and of the Chagres River. On the first afternoon after I checked in, I went for a walk in the light rain, and one of the first birds I spotted was this ruddy ground dove. They are really tiny little doves and seem pretty common here. Just after that, I came across a group of smooth-billed anis. This was a lifer, one of many from this trip. I added 65 lifers to my personal life list on this trip, most of them in the 3-day period after my conference ended. I also came across this swallow just resting on an open perch, and I was thinking that it was going to be a tropical species and possibly a lifer. But eventually I determined it was a wintering barn swallow, a species with a huge geographic range. According to Wikipedia, they are found on every continent, if you include some vagrants seen in Antarctica. In any case, I think you'll agree that this one was showing extremely well. In the reeds right along the river, I came across this wattled jacana, which was not shy at all. Jacanas are water birds and are known for their very long toes that allow them to walk on top of floating vegetation. Unfortunately, you can't see the feet in this video clip. Continuing along the rough path that followed the river, the birds kept coming. It wouldn't be tropical birding without a few parrots. Red Lord Amazon seemed to be the most common species in the Gamboa area. A little further along the path, I came across a cocoa woodpecker. It was loud and active, but unfortunately difficult to film. After following it around for a while, I ended up getting a couple of decent photos. This was sort of a fun species to see, a giant cowbird. They really are quite large, about the size of a crow, and they look sort of awkward and goofy due to the ruff of feathers around their neck. That's a southern lapwing being noisy in the background. And here is yet another flycatcher species. This one is a streaked flycatcher. I came across these ruddy ground doves feeding on the ground, and I realized they were snacking on this line of leafcutter ants. It was always great to find a line of ants, because in addition to being an interesting sight, it also meant that there would be birds around. In this case, this barred ant shrike was also actively feeding on the ants, but it was a bit camera shy. One of the features of tropical birding is all of these birds that have ant in the name. Ant shrikes, ant birds, ant wrens, and so on. Really fun. Another type of bird I associate with the tropics is hummingbirds. Although I didn't end up seeing as many hummingbird species as I was expecting, it was great to see these beautiful white-necked Jacobins. Of course, these two males were squabbling over the same perch. Every once in a while, I would see a familiar bird from farther north that was overwintering in the area. For example, this immature little blue heron, which is common in the southeastern United States and is an uncommon but regular species in Massachusetts. Also, this beautiful yellow warbler, looking right at home in the tropics. I'll be seeing them flying around and setting up nesting territories on my home patch any day now. This is a white-winged dove, a bird that can be found in the southernmost United States, but one I don't get to see very often. While I was looking at the white-winged dove, another larger bird flew into a tree quite close to me. I didn't know what it was at first as it had its back to me. I walked around to the other side and was excited to see that it was a trogon. Look at that red color. What a beautiful bird. It seemed very mellow and didn't seem to be bothered at all by my presence. Getting this great close-up look at a slaty-tailed trogon was one of the most memorable moments of my trip.
Well, as you can hear, it's raining just a little bit here in the tropics. There's been several of these showers over the days. They usually rain intensely for a little while and then stop pretty quickly, so I'm hoping that's the case. I've taken shelter in a gazebo that's on the ground so I don't get too wet. I didn't bring my umbrella on this walk.
So I'll use this rain delay to show just a little more footage of the hotel itself. From the front, it looks fairly ordinary, but the lobby is really large and dramatic, and it has these huge windows overlooking the grounds and the river. As is the case with many hotels, the rooms weren't quite up to the same standard as the lobby and public areas, but my room was clean and comfortable, so no complaints. Once the rain stopped, I quickly located this gray-headed chachalaca. I had seen chachalacas in Texas before, but it turns out that this is a different species of chachalaca, so this was another lifer for me. This buff-throated saltator was hard to ID because the rain made it appear much darker than usual. However, the Merlin ID app was able to identify it from this photo. I found both the photo ID and sound ID features of Merlin to be very useful on this trip. Thick-billed euphonia is another common and colorful bird in Panama. This flame-rump tanager had me confused for a while. I couldn't see the yellow rump patch from the front, so it just looked like an all-black bird. This is a female flame-rump tanager, enjoying a juicy caterpillar. And here's a red-legged honeycreeper, another really colorful tropical species. Females aren't quite as colorful, but are still attractive. I wandered into this water treatment area on the edge of the hotel grounds, thinking it might be a good place for birds. I found several species, most of which I've already shown, but this spotted sandpiper was a new trip bird. This is another overwintering migrant that's common in Massachusetts.
Okay, so I was getting close to ending this walk here today. It hasn't been as good as the walk yesterday because of the weather. It's raining and very hard to see the birds right now, but I've come into this back corner of the property where I had some good luck yesterday. It's kind of a water treatment area where there's, kind of some smell and everything, the kind of place that, has good birds, if you know what I mean. And just had a keel-billed toucan fly into the top of a tree. This is just one of the most iconic birds in the world. And I glimpsed a few, but hadn't had a chance to get any good photographs so far. So let's go to the footage of that.
In addition to having that huge colorful bill, toucans are surprisingly large birds overall. Seeing this spectacular species and getting it on video was another highlight of the trip for me, as you can imagine.
Okay, I think it's going to be hard to top that toucan, so I'm going to stop while I'm on a high note for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed all the birds that we've seen here. Bye for now.